Hello and welcome everyone to episode 14 of Mission Apollo, the official Apollo Scooters podcast. I'm joined once more by our resident mad scientist and our chief technology officer, Mr. Eloi Paquette. What's up, Mr. Eloi?
I'm great. Thank you, Sean. What
Thank you for
about you?
joining me again. I'm doing pretty well. Today we're going to be talking about our newest scooter, which hopefully you guys have watched already. We just dropped our special keynote yesterday at the time of recording this podcast. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll probably be 2 days ago, I guess. If you have not watched the keynote yet, pause this video, go and watch it right now, because it'll be very important to get a lot of context and know what we're actually talking about. So I'm going to give you this moment to pause the podcast. And now come back so you know what we're talking about. Great, pretty exciting stuff, right? So to go into more details about the scooter, the development of it, some of the specs, and really showcase its features, we're going to dive into that today with the podcast. So Ella, if you can give us like a little bit of a history of the city, why is it called the city, and how did we get here?
Yeah, sure, with great pleasure. So the city, the only thing that is similar to the old one is really just the name. That's pretty much it. And the box. We kept the same beautiful box design, but everything else is different. We've been working on this one for about 18 months. We basically started at the same time as the Air. But yeah, we wanted to release the Air first because it was not as I guess engineering challenging because there's no suspension. It's like it's not as powerful. So the Air was like almost a proof of concept for this design, and also the app and all the feature we introduced at the time. So yeah, we started around the same time, and we made 4 different iterations of the city, and hopefully we're gonna make a video soon that we show like the Phantom every iteration. I think this one's gonna be pretty cool because you can really see like all the little part changing, the folding mechanism, motor, the suspension. Like it's really nice. And so for this one, we really put the extra time and effort on everything. I wanted every single component to feel right about it. I think for this scooter, there was basically no component of the shell. There's really maybe just a grip handle, but all the rest, and even the grip handle, I never saw them on another scooter. It's just we don't have the mold for it. It's not our IP, but pretty much every component is made by us. There's no, the thing I think I'm the most proud of is there's no wire sticking out. It's completely hidden. And as people will see with our keynote, it's really all about the Apollo ID approach, the integrated design. So there's no extra button, no extra wires. Everything is well thought. Pretty proud of it. But again, people go watch a keynote and you'll see it for yourself.
Yeah, hopefully you guys paused earlier when I told you to and watched the keynote so you can actually see what the scooter looks like now. It was a big reveal. And yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed about the scooter is there's no visible wires, electronics anywhere. The only visible wires are the 2 brake handles, the brake wires that go into the stem. Those are still also protected. I remember you guys were talking in the past about how you wanted to get towards that Apple sharpness, right? Like you pick up an iPhone, you pick up a MacBook, something like that, and it feels sharp in your hands. Not literally sharp, like it's going to cut you, but it's solid and well built. And I think you guys have really achieved that with the city, right?
Yes, definitely. And that's the feedback we got. It's definitely one step towards the Apple feeling. It's like our first move in a big, I guess, in the big game that we have planned for scooters. But the feedback we receive from every reviewer, from ESG, SI, Electrek, it's all the same thing. It feels like a tank. There's nothing moving on the scooter. There is no rattling. The folding mechanism like out of this world. So yeah, and this is really the feeling. Apple, I think, or like good quality in general, it's all about like the experience when you touch it. But even more than this, like for bicycle, for example, it's how safe you feel on it, right? And by having no parts shaking, by having no wires that you're like, it's special to see all those wires, by having everything like neat and solid, you feel safe. And that's the most common feedback we receive from reviewers. It's nothing is moving. I feel like the scooter is an absolute tank, and this is related to the weight that we can address a bit later. But it's really we are getting close to the Apple experience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely feels well built and sturdy like a tank, but we can definitely assure you it does not handle like a tank. That's for sure. But with such a radical redesign, was there any particular reason for wanting to keep the name the city? Because, I mean, as most people would know, they're pretty familiar with our previous city, which was an OEM. But this one is just so drastically different. Was there any kind of reasoning behind keeping the name or any
Yeah, I
discussion
guess
there?
for the main reason that, it's not a sexy reason, but I thought we need to say it. Apollo built a lot of like a reputation on the city, and when you are like a small company like us, you need to utilize the SEO that you build. This is how
Yeah.
Google, reference you and everything online. So it's really important to keep that. So that would be a big factor for sure. But the other thing is also size wise. The new city is a bit heavier, but the size, when you look at it, it's still pretty small. So that's why we kept it. And the city was the next scooter in the lineup that we wanted to change, because there was some problem about it. The rest of the scooter are super reliable, but the city, there was some key component on it that it just wasn't happy. And it's not something that the old factory that we were working with was willing to change. Like the old city is mold from Titan or Unicool, whatever people want to call them. But so we wanted to first produce our own mold, like we did for the city, and also fix the key component that this factory was just not willing to do, because we're only one customer out of many for this mold. So when we sell 100,000 of those mold to the other company, and they don't necessarily care about the reliability like we do, the factory won't change the part for you. So the city was the next obvious thing to change. So SEO, and also just all the parts that were problematic that we wanted to fix. And then cities sound also quite cool, right? Like the Apollo city, when you hear the name, it's not like the Apollo Tundra. Well, Tundra would maybe mean something, but the Apollo like Eclipse or something, or even the Phantom started instead. But you hear the name city and you say, okay, this scooter is for the city.
It's very obvious what it's intended for. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's something we've brought up before in terms of like working with OEMs and purchasing those prefabricated molds. Like it's hard to get custom features of what we want. And the city, like you mentioned, it was a very reliable scooter, one of our best selling. And I'm curious to know what these parts are that we wanted to upgrade, because as far as we know, and like working in customer service, the city is pretty reliable scooter. But what were some of the parts that you wanted to specifically customize or upgrade, if you can share that?
Folding mechanism, 100%. I don't like the folding mechanism that the wheel go up when you fold it. Usually, like if you look at the Phantom, you really just have the stem about like at the beginning of the stem, you have the folding mechanism. Only the stem fold down, and on top of that, you have the clip. So even if the front hook like give up for some reason, the pin is gonna hold you, and even if there's no pin, let's say, you're just gonna like lean back and probably you're going to crash, but not as hard as if the wheel was lifting up. Because imagine you're going like 40 an hour, the wheel lift up, the front of the scooter is going to dig in the pavement, and you're going to go flying, It's like putting a handbrake on the front wheel. It's just not a good design in my head. We should always design scooters for the worst case scenario. And the actual like conception of the scooter was not that great. So it's and the city it was smaller. On the Explorer, the whole mechanism and everything is bigger, so it's really better. We don't have like that issue at all on the Explorer, but on the city there was some instance of not clipping it well, in place. So it's just something we wanted to change. And the other component was the motor. So on the city, you have an easy plug connector to be able to replace the motor. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like the black one that you align the arrows. Basically, you can disconnect it, replace the motor. At first hand, it seems super convenient to have this connector, because you're like, okay, I don't need to open the deck, disconnect all the motor phase wire and the sensor. It's literally outside, disconnected. It's a 5-minute job. But the reality is that this connector is what is actually causing the problem that need the motor to be replaced. So it's it's
and the fact that it's outside
great.
is more vulnerable too. So it's more convenient, but it's also more vulnerable.
Exactly, and it's great
Yeah.
if you want to sell spare part and make money out of it. But when you are like us and you don't want to sell spare parts because
Yeah.
it's just annoying, you need
Hmm.
to have the wires going inside or have at least a connector that can clip. Now it was just pushed together. It need to
Hmm.
clip, and on top of that, that connector was add really small pin for the motor phase wire. Uh, and it was not optimal to support the amount of current we were passing through it. So often we're seeing that connector melting. Just a couple of issues like this that if you want to change, well, you need to change the controller because the connector coming out are not the same. Need to change the motor. So it's a lot of things to change to fix a simple problem.
Yeah.
And a key, I think those connector can work in certain scooter, but on the city, what happened is that it was aligned with the rear suspension. So as soon as you were jumping
Hmm.
on the scooter, this connector was moving a little bit until it was loose, make some spark and burn. So there was a couple of design flaw like this.
Hmm. Yeah, these are pretty rare from my experience, but yeah, anything that's more than like one instance is more than we want, and so it's great that we were able to upgrade these parts because yeah, we were not the only brand buying from these OEMs, from these manufacturers, and they're selling to other brands. Obviously, it's no secret,
Mm-hmm.
and but we wanted to distinguish ourselves, and yeah, some people have like you addressed it already, but questioned the reasoning why we chose the name City, but I mean, I think it's no different from car manufacturers. They release different models every year. Sometimes they look drastically different from one year to the next, but they're still called the same name because that's what fits in their lineup. So in regards to our lineup, obviously this is a progression of the City. Who else would this scooter be intended for? Like, obviously it's for city commuters. Is there anything specific, any kind of specific person that you would recommend it for?
I think it's still a great scooter for the city commuting, even if it's heavier and doesn't necessarily have the folding handlebar. It's and For me personally, that point of not folding the handlebar, it's and that's another point we wanted to fix with the city. One of the issue
Mhm.
that was happening, it was coming loose because you could fold it. You always had to retighten it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, it's convenient to be able to fold it, put it under your desk. But honestly, you can still fold it and put the handlebar like it's gonna be like next to the wall, right? When it's
Hmm.
folded, so it's
Yeah.
not really taking much more space. So I would say everyone that wants to still commute, it's a great choice. And the difference with this scooter compared to the old City is with the new suspension, with the bigger tire, because that's one of the things. It's no longer 8.5 inch; it's 10 inch. You instead
Hmm.
of commuting to the subway and then taking the subway and going to work and then finishing maybe the last mile of the scooter, can start from your place and go to work as one go with it. And with the
Yeah.
4.5 hour of charging time, you can charge it while you work, even if you do a
Hmm.
small shift, because this is how quick it can charge.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely for people that still want to commute within a city or even outside the city. But yeah, it's going to replace really the city, I think, pretty well. And just to be
Hmm.
clear, because the old city was great, it's a great scooter.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only reason why we address all those points that seem negative, it's we had the chance to improve on them. So of course we'll do it. But
Yeah.
overall, the old city was a fantastic scooter. And I say like we
Yeah.
had a lot of issue, but it's because when you sell tens of thousands of scooter, like even 1%, it's quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Very
still
true.
a great choice for all the people that bought it. Did a good choice.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, that standard charger that's going to be included with the C, that's huge. It's basically a fast charger. I think that's going to be an amazing feature. And yeah, with the folding handlebars, people have requested that to be more portable, but the handlebars are basically the same as the Air Pro, which are not super wide, but they are
Yeah,
much more stable. And
yeah,
even when you fold it down, like you're not really going to gain that much more space by being able to fold the handlebars because they don't extend that
exactly.
far out anyway. Yeah.
Exactly, and if you offer me the choice between being convenient, which again I don't think it's a game changer, that the fact that it can fold, or being safe,
Hmm.
meaning that first of all it's impossible to fold on you, and secondly it won't come loose, I will
Yeah.
always choose the safest option. And
Yeah.
that's maybe one thing we can address, that we change from the air design to the city design. The new window, how it's the new and old design, I guess it's completely changed. On the air, it was only one screw holding the handlebar, and it had the tendency
Hmm.
to become loose. Now we completely changed the whole design. You screw the whole handle into place, and then you put two screws inside. It will never become loose again. So pretty proud of this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so the new City is built in the same factory as the Air and the Air Pro, right? Which is different from obviously the previous City mold that we were using.
Yeah.
Can you talk about our decision to move in that direction, some of the benefits of working with the same factory? Because obviously the Air Pro, it's been released now for almost a year, I think, right? And
Yeah.
it's been one of our most reliable scooters, in my opinion.
Yeah, I remember. I think you made the first video with it last March, about the same time. So yeah, it's been a year. Yeah, we decided to go with the City factory for obvious reason. Just the quality that this factory is able to deliver, it's quite impressive. And we saw that if we are able to have such high quality on the cheapest scooter, which is the Air, cheapest by price, we were wondering what we can achieve if we throw a couple more $100 to it, like on the factory side. And the result is a City. We have an incredible paint job. You have better components, more powerful one. So that's why we decided to do this this choice. And the second thing we did, the Air factory is it's a big factory. They have probably one of the most well-renowned electric scooter factory in Shenzhen. It's in Shenzhen, by the way, that we make them. There's an advantage to it, meaning they have a lot of experience building scooter. They have a lot of contact too with all the best battery manufacturer, motor manufacturer, and controller manufacturer. But one of the downside is that you have to fight for your place in the assembly line sometimes, because you have like a Russian oligarch almost that want to build 50,000 scooter at a time, and you're like, okay. By the way, for people listening, we moved to our new office and we are still fixing the Wi-Fi. That's why. But yeah, you have people passing incredible big order, and when you are still in the startup vibe like us, your order are not that big, so you have to fight for your place in the assembly line. And not only this, the employee that's going to assemble the scooter, well, they just assembled 50,000 of the Russian scooter, for example. Russian, it's like literally all over the world, their customer. So they don't necessarily have the expertise, or just they're not that familiar with building your scooter after that, and that can lead to certain mistake. So now what we did, we decided to open our own assembly line. We rented a 25,000 square foot floor, literally in the same building. So we are still getting all the advantages of working with this factory, but at least we can produce how we want. We can have our own dedicated employee to our floor, or dedicated QC people, because you have the assembly employee, you have the QC employee, and you have the managers on top of that. So we can keep all of this, and they can really focus on making our product better. So we can improve the incoming QC, the SOP, the outgoing QC. We can work on that. And when you, as I was explaining before, when you are competing with other customer like this, it's not really something you are trying to put processes in place of how to assemble this handlebar, how to make sure that when they receive component, they are inspected well, and even when it's going out, putting in the box, you are trying to make processes for everything. But when they are making so many scooters for other customer, it's like, okay, I'm going to make it for my scooters, but are they really going to use it? Because they're always switching the sheet for different assembly, So now by having our floor, we can invest everything that we invested in terms of processes, and it's going to be respected. Yeah, so that's quite nice. And for people who receive the Air and saw the Air, it's an incredibly well-built scooter. And the city, and it was built within what I just explained before, not even our floor. So imagine what we're going to be able to do with built in our floor with our employees. It's next level. It's going to be really, really close to Apple again.
Wow. Yeah, so we have our own dedicated assembly line. That's exciting stuff. And yeah, as you mentioned,
we have our name
so
on the
hard.
building. So if you ever go to Shenzhen, you can look for that
cool.
Apollo building.
We should try and get a picture of that or footage or something. We're officially building our own vertical, I guess. But yeah, as you said, it's so hard to get our own customized experience with what we want when we're just one of many other customers from the same factory. So that's exciting stuff. And you kind of touched on the new paint job and everything too. And this seems to be a very strong departure from our previous lineup, where we're pretty well known for being that blue and some black, but the Air was all black. And then now the City, it looks like it's going to be kind of a dark metallic gray with some orange highlights, right? Is this a new direction that we're taking, or is it just like a one-off for this scooter?
It's definitely a new direction. The blue and black look great, honestly. But it was really to be the opposite of red and black, which is our biggest competitors. And just the blue and the dye shade look quite good. Was, I think, the best looking anodized color. But yeah, we after that we tried the black color and the silver with the Phantom, which look great, and it's definitely a key signature. I think this is how you can recognize a Phantom in the street, because usually scooters are like black and yellow or all black. So it was great, but it's not really something that you can recognize easily, right? It's like still okay, black or silver, you're not sure. So now we're moving towards a gray shade, and it's called 425C, the Pantone number, if you ever want to paint your room with that
sexy
color.
name.
So yeah, we're moving towards this color shade and the orange as well. We thought that the mix of the two was really nice, and we are moving instead of it's a small thing, but when you see the city, it's I think the first thing you notice, and the renders that you saw in the keynote are realistic. The paint is really that reflective on the scooter, and the reason is usually we use powder coat, meaning that they paint then put it in the oven. Just like making cookies, I guess. But they put it in the oven, and the finish of this is super durable, but it's not as shiny, and it doesn't really luxurious. You need to do, it's called oil painting for this. And this is how you get really first of all, the precise shade. You always add the same shade, while powder coat, it's it's black, right? You won't try to do a complex like a gray like we're doing, or orange with powder coat. And you're getting the reflectiveness, and it's also lasting much longer, like scratch-wise, and even when you put it under the sun, it won't lose any colors. And that's one thing I noticed with the old City. Some people were bringing them, and you could see the black was not as black as it was initially, because they were charging it always let's say in their office under the sun, and it was just losing color literally. So hopefully the new City paint job will fix that. But yeah, to answer your question, all future models are designed currently, at least all the prototype we have, with this gray and the orange, and so far people seem to love it. So I'm glad that
it's very sharp.
Not just
I like it. Yeah. So you talked about the new direction that we're taking and the new manufacturing process line, which is very exciting. I think one of the main concerns that a lot of people bring up, maybe with fair reason, comparing it to our Phantom, which had some initial issues, which we definitely worked out. We worked very hard to correct those very quickly. Some people are wondering if that's going to happen again, but we have taken a lot of extra steps, which you kind of alluded to before, in testing and making sure this City and this release is going to be perfect by the time people are going to get it in their hands. So can you tell us a little bit about the steps that we have taken and the extensive testing that we've done?
The first obvious point is that the factory, as I mentioned, they are so professional that they know what they are doing. So that's literally, we are taking a lot of experience from a well-known factory. That's going to help across all the parts. The other thing we did, we bought around test 10 testing rigs, and we're going to make videos on it. It's literally being made right now by a professional videographer. And we tested the scooter, like, we advertise 100 kilos. Maybe I should not say that, but it's for the testing purpose, so who cares? But we test the scooter with 300 kilos for all the tests. So on the testing rig, and you will see it in the video, it's a plate from when you bench press, I guess, tape all across the scooter, because there was so many plates, it couldn't fit on the scooter properly on the usual rack. So we had to tape more plates to reach the 300 kilos. And we tested it for, the city was tested for 2,000 kilometers at 20 kilometers per hour with 300 kilos on it. So nothing happened. On the first sample, actually, yes, the suspension was not bouncing as it was initially, but nothing cracked. So we improved the suspension littles, but the actual frame was great. So we did that. For the stem, we also bought a machine that push and pull the stem. I think it's 100,000 times. And for the factory, usually for their other customer, they do it 10,000 times. So we went 10 times more, and the folding mechanism was still pretty tight. We improved it further by adding a better Loctite. The Loctite we had before, the screw were coming a bit loose, and you were losing the adjustment, but it never opened on you, never. And the last test, the other big test we did is the throttle. As you know, we are designing brand new throttle that look absolutely fantastic. I'm so proud of those ones, but we needed to test them. There's a reason why every supplier uses basically the same throttle, is that they are pretty hard to design, and also they are pretty reliable too. So when you want to design a brand new one, you need to make sure to test it. And it's the same thing. You have a rig, and you have just a pneumatic, like an air tool pressing on it and releasing. Usually they do it 15,000 times, and we did it 100,000 times, and it was still great. So those are like kind of the few key tests we did. For the motor, it's the same thing. It's 100,000 kilometers. It's pretty long to test, as you can imagine. It's rolling 24 hours, 7 days a week. But again, we'll make a dedicated video for this, and people can see it. And what is great is that, with the Phantom, the video we built our own custom rig here on the South Shore. Definitely a cool project, but you need to buy those rig, I think, from a professional supplier that always make this to really have something solid, and there's computer linked to it, so you really see the amount of bump, you really see the amount of kilometers, the speed, you see everything on it, and you need someone monitoring 24 hours. Well, they're monitoring maybe like 20 hours of a day, not the 4 hours on the switch shift, but anyway, all that said, by adding the right rigs, by adding the right factories, by over testing everything, we are pretty sure that the Phantom is going to be a tank. And again, the feedback we receive from every tester, the feedback we receive from every tester. What I said, the Phantom?
Yeah, he said the Phantom.
Well, the Phantom too. The Phantom,
the Phantom too, yeah. Talking specifically about the city, though.
But no, it's going to be great. And again, now we have like a team of engineers here that are able to do FE analysis and over test everything with like 600 pounds. And it's an absolute tank. For the engineer that are listening to this, we have a factor of safety on pretty much all the parts of 8.9. And usually it's, to be safe, it's 1.67. So it's ridiculous. It's really, really, really solid. And,
I'll pretend I know what that means, but hopefully the more technically minded people will know what that means, but it sounds like it's very safe. And I think it clearly demonstrates we're very prepared, and we've done extensive testing, and all of this is at like the factory level, right? Like in the same location?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's very exciting. And going back a little bit, where you mentioned we were designing the throttle, what kind of goes into that? Maybe people don't know. Maybe we're getting a little bit too much into like the R&D part of this, but because everyone's so used to those trigger throttles or the thumb throttle attachment that attaches to that trigger throttle, but this one is just a built-in thumb throttle that we have designed, right? So what goes into that?
All right, so this throttle, the most obvious thing is the ergonomic shape to keep you comfortable even for those long rides. As I said in the keynote, the shape is great. It's overlapping on the button portion, and also always tilted towards the finger you're using. I'm using both ends because, as you know, on the city we have the region now. So that's the most noticeable thing when you ride it. It's just so comfortable. The second thing that goes into it is the button. Right now, you do have throttles that are similar on the market with buttons integrated, but those buttons are moving with the throttle. So when you press on the throttle, all the buttons are moving as well. This might seem great because you can press the button while you accelerate, but the reality is that the whole button part and wires and PCB inside, they are moving with the throttle as well. So you can imagine when you do this, like I stated before, 100,000 times, for example, well, the wires and the PCB inside are just gone. Like the solder or the solder of the PCB every time you press are being warped. It's not great. So what we did, we had to design. It's basically two pieces of throttle. You have the button area and you have the moving part on the throttle. So like this, the button are always fixed, and just the part with the Hall sensor and the magnet actually is moving. It's going to be much more durable. The other thing is the invisible cable. So we had to design a case that's going to cover the wire when it exits the throttle casing. So the wire is still outside, as you probably saw in the Phantom V3 videos. You know, the wires are not going inside the handlebar; they're still outside. So for the city, what we did, keep the same throttle because we want to stock one part for basically all the models. It's much easier to manage. And we designed a cover that's going to go on top of the wire, and then the wire is going to be rerouted inside the handlebar in the case of the city. So invisible wire, ergonomic shape, integrated buttons, and that as a result, we don't have any button on the display like we had for the Air. We are able to have like a waterproof display. This is how we can actually achieve the IP56. It's by not putting an opening in the PCB for the button. It might seem like a small thing doing a throttle, but when you link all those things together, it's quite an important piece. And as we said in the keynote, it's the part that you touch the most out of the scooter, right? So it should feel special. And that's why I think, for example, the PS5 is so great. It's not like the console look, a bit weird. And I'm a big PlayStation fan, by the way, so no hate in the comments. The Xbox, you can leave now the podcast. But the thing that everyone noticed with the PlayStation, it's the weird shape, but after that, it's the trigger, right? The trigger, the adaptive trigger, because it's the thing that you always touch and always play with it. So we designed the throttle with the same mindset. It's going to be the thing that you interact the most, so it needs to feel special.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I have not been lucky enough to be able to cop a PS5 yet, but it's still in pretty hot demand. But where was I going to go with that? That's interesting that I didn't really know some other manufacturers with their thumb throttles, it moves the buttons as well. And that doesn't really make any sense because when you're holding the handle and you're pressing the throttle, your thumb moves, but the rest of your fingers don't. So if the buttons are moving with that, you have to like rotate your entire hand to press those buttons still. So
it doesn't make any sense. And I think our design, what is great, it's adding maybe an extra layer of safety because you cannot press a button while you accelerate. So let's say you accelerate, you release it, then press a button instead of, like you just said, trying to press it at the same time. And what is like great with those throttle is we put the buttons on the two sides. And on the right side, it's you have an arrow pointing to the right for the right turn signal, and you have the power button. On the left side, you have the mode button, and you have the arrow pointing to the left. So it's so intuitive to just press on the turning signal like this. If we compare it to, let's say, the Phantom, you had to reach out to the same button on the left side and gauge like this while driving. It's great. It's a great button module, but not as great as those throttle. Now it's really intuitive. You just press literally on the side that you want the turning signal to be applied. That's literally the best case scenario to apply throttle in my mind.
I think very intuitive and very ergonomic. So one last question before we go into like the final specs or what we can say about it so far. The turn signals, some people have questioned. There's like that loud beeping sound that comes up. And in my opinion, I think that's a pretty standard feature. I mean, even on cars, like when you have your turn signal on, you can hear the noise. But some people are asking if that's a feature they'll be able to turn off or if the sound can be changed maybe. I guess it's just like a little bit too loud for people. Is that something we're looking into or thinking of? Sorry if I put you on the
future
spot.
model, maybe.
Okay.
So there's 3 points to this question. The first one is usually on most scooters, you don't hear the turn signal. You put it, and to know that it's active, you need to look at the body because even the display, if we take like the classic display like we had on the city, there's no arrows or anything. So that's not intuitive. The second thing is there any sound with the turning signal? Yes, on the city, when you turn it on, it's like a car. You hear the click, 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 click like this.
Yeah.
So at least and on top of that, you see it on the display. So visible, You can hear it as well, so pretty cool. The last thing that we need to do is try to incorporate it within the app. I would love to, if you use the phone as a display, well, it will be cool to see the arrows there. And the last thing, the last point of your question is, will you be able to change the sound? Well, to change the sound, you need three things. You need a Bluetooth connection, which we have. You need also a speaker, which we don't have because the sound is being produced by just a small, it's not a speaker. And lastly, you need a memory card within the PCB to be able to save the sound that you want to apply. If not, it's always going to be streamed via your phone. So you need to have an MP3 file with, it's way too complicated. So for now, no, you won't be able to change it. We are designing an incredible lineup, as you saw, Sean. So in the future, there's going to be a model that maybe at this feature, but for now, you have the sound, you have the visible signal, and that's hopefully it's good enough for most people.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's just a safety feature, and then like we mentioned, like you hear the turn signals on the car, so this is no different. And you don't want to be riding your scooter around for miles with the turn signal on, and you don't even realize it. So it can be a little bit annoying, but you shouldn't be having it on for very long. And
no, and there's a timer built in, right? It's going to flash for I think 6 times and then turn off.
Yeah. That's good to know as well. And yeah, especially with a scooter too, like you're much smaller than a car, so just having the light may not even be enough. So without the sound, people around you can hear, and maybe it's going to be a little bit hard to hear if someone else is in a car.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. Like the rider can hear it for sure, but the car next to it, no. It's like when you drive a car, you know the other driver,
like a pedestrian nearby, right? Yeah. So in my opinion, that's a safety feature.
Okay. I'll take it. It's a safety feature. That's okay.
So before we go into like the specs and just kind of recap what we said everything in the keynote the other day, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about like the progression and the development of the scooter, or any exciting features that may be coming with it?
Sure. Well, let's just address all this the spec quickly and why it's great. And we're gonna make so many videos, comparing all the models, showing how we tested it. So we're gonna have the chance to come back to it. Why this one is so great? There's temperature sensor in the motors, so your motors will never burn, and you're gonna receive a notification on your phone that say, "Hey, your motor are overheating, so we are limiting the performance for the next 5 minutes," and you're gonna be able to track the temperature. There's a temperature sensor built in the controller, so you'll never burn your controller again. Touching wood here, but we're taking the precaution. Okay. Before on the old city, everything was just getting hot to a point that it was melting, and that's pretty much it. So it's great to have those things. And again, with the app, we can do so many things. We can trigger like thermal throttling to like wait till the temperature cool down and then give you again all the performance. The self-healing tires that are fantastic. We had the chance to test it in the warehouse too, Sean. Like here for fun, we just like took a screwdriver, make 10 holes in it, like 10 like this.
We're going to be releasing a video soon with that tire puncture.
It's not losing any pressure. No, it's really cool. And the thread of those tires, we took a similar thread of an Italian brand. I'll let people guess it, but just a thread on the actual tire, it's incredible. The grip is so great, and just the shape of the tire, I'm really proud of those tires. The motor are completely closed and flat now. So on the old city, you had the casing sticking out with like a pattern of almost like a plane, like a turbine, I guess. Look cool, kind of, but it's way cleaner when it's all closed and flush and black. Just absolutely fantastic. The obvious other thing with tubeless tire that everyone knows is that they are super hard to change. Like a 9-bot max tire, good luck changing that. We refuse them at the warehouse because it's so hard. It's impossible. It's like it's a deal breaker. I think when you buy a 9-bot max and you try to change a tire, you say never again a 9-bot. It's ridiculous. And the
replace
9-bot
the whole scooter at that point.
Yes, for real, they are selling the motor with the tire mounted because they know. And on top of that, they don't even sell just the tire because it's 9-bot. So they do great things, but definitely not on spare parts. So all of that to say that with the new city, we have the reviewers disassemble a tire and reinstall it, because you have people like Paul from ESG that just love the way of those things. And even our tech here, everyone said that not only it's easy to put on, it's the easiest tire that they ever put on, because it's so soft on the outside. You can really just pop it in, and that's it. So that's great.
Quick question there, if I can interrupt you. So the tires are going to be 10 inches for the city. People have also asked, will these self-healing tires be replaceable on the Explorer or the Ghost? Like, could they buy that tire for their current Explorer Ghost or other 10-inch tire scooter?
No, because it needs to be tubeless, and in order to be tubeless, you need the same thing as a rim of a car. You can't split it because the air is gonna it's gonna escape through the crack of the rim. So no, not with other 10-inch tires that are not tubeless. But if you have tubeless tires, like maybe Dualtron, they have this, or maybe Capu, I don't know. You could, but after that, there's a question because they are quite large too, right? They're 3.5-inch wide, I believe. So it need to pass, like for the fender, you need to have the space for the forks. Sorry, for the forks as well. So maybe people can try and let us know. Those are great tires, and if you have the chance to install it on your scooter, you should.
Yeah. Yeah, the other scooters, for people who don't know, they have split rims because they are pneumatic tires. And so when you have pneumatic tires, the split rims make it easier to change. But obviously with this solid, I guess, or if you don't use an inner tube, tubeless tire, sorry. I'm guessing it's not a split rim. That's in order to keep the shape and the air inside. So it would not be compatible, unfortunately.
That's correct. And one other point that is quite nice with tubeless tires, because it's not a split rim, it's way more solid as well, you know. So we had the problem with pretty much all our scooters, maybe except the Phantom, because it's the motor are so thick, the rim are cracking when you hit the giant puddle. It's the first thing that's going to bend, like on a car when you have your mag, like take a hit, it can crack sometimes. But on the car, it's quite rare. And when you have tubeless tires, it's like one piece of solid rim, so you're gonna have way less cracked rim, basically. And I guess one of the last point that is really cool about the city is the 21700 cell. So that's why we are able to. I would like to put such a big battery on a lightweight scooter, but it's quite heavy. But it's heavy because it's a tank. Like it's built, and maybe that's one point we can address the whole weight thing. But the 21700 cell are in 48-volt configuration, 13.5 AH. So the same thing as the old City, which was 13.2. Why we decided to go with 21700? The brand is incredible. It's a Li Chen. It's the best Chinese brand you can buy out there, and people are putting that in electric cars. It's really great to look it up, and it's able to charge at a higher current without damaging the battery. So of course, with the old City, you could grab a 4 amp charger, plug it, and it's going to work. But instead of having 500 charge cycle, you would have maybe 300. You know, with those cells, you can always charge at 3 amp or even 5 amp, whatever. We're probably going to have another fast charger and keep the 500 charge cycle, which is it's important. You know, the battery is so expensive, so that's great. And the whole battery enclosure, if you ever open the City, you'll see it. It's before basically you were putting the battery, putting the top plate, and it was holding with the top plate like compressed on it. That's okay, I guess, but now it's a screw into the deck. It's not moving. It's never going to move. The whole thing is better, and there's a plastic structure around it, so it's even more waterproof. It will shake less. Every single part of the scooter is better by far.
Wow.
And so let's address the weight. So why is the scooter so much heavier than the old one? It's I think around 17 pounds heavier than the old one.
Yeah, it's because you guys said what, 66 pounds, I think, right, for the new City?
For the dual motor, it's 66. For the single motor, it's 57. So the old one was a single motor.
Yeah.
So why? The middle is way better. It's way thicker. The battery, it's around the same weight. The actual battery, a bit lighter actually. The motors, they are bigger to fit 10-inch. They're also more powerful. They are 500 watt, but the peak that we're able to get, it's much higher. And people who's going to drive the City definitely going to notice. And it's a combination of all those things. And on top of that, you have the whole suspension, right? On the old City, you had a suspension. It's okay.
Basic spring,
basic spring, yeah. But when you switch to a C suspension, like we call it, and those parts are heavy, you know, swing arm. You have like the actual big spring at the back. You have 2 spring. All those small components add up to weight more. And the reality is not that the City is too. It's too heavy. It's the old City was not heavy enough for a city use. You know, you should have a tank like this when you ride in City. because I'm sure pretty much everyone is in the same situation that we are in Montreal. Streets are so terrible. You need something to be built to handle those streets. And the weight, honestly, I would not go back to a scooter that is lighter, because as we said in the beginning, the city feels so safe. It's because of the weight. It's because of how tight everything is. It's because of the suspension. So yeah, to have a city usage, you should have a scooter in those range for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like you said before, like this city is intended to take you places basically, and not take with you on the train or the metro or throw in the back of your car. It's still fit in your car, if you want to bring it somewhere else. But yeah, it's intended to get you there, not
exactly. And it's still in my mind, like I'm gonna say it, it's still portable. You have the rear grip. You just grab it, go up the stairs. It's actually easier to grab in the old city. And of course, there's things you can do to make the scooter lighter. Like if you look at the new, I don't know, like a Unagi, for example, it's 38 pounds, I believe. But this scooter is like 2.5 grand. You're going to I think 20 kilometers per hour, and you have a 10Ah batteries. So yes, we need to keep a balance of what is like the best component we can put inside, being safe, and all overshadowing all of that is always the price that we want to offer it at. The new city is quite. It's a little bit more expensive than the old one, but giving all the things you are getting for it, it's extremely reasonable. It's pretty much one of the best price scooter for what you're getting, I think, out there.
Yeah. And like a lot of our other launches, we're going to have some pretty exciting early launch bonuses. So for the first few customers, details yet to come, we're going to have some pretty exciting bonuses to get you excited for it. But okay, let's dive into the specs and recap that again, just in case people didn't remember everything from the keynote. So just to clarify, there's going to be two versions of the City. There's a single motor and the dual motor, and each of those motors will always be 500 watts, right?
Yeah. The same motor on both of them, so you really just have more acceleration on the dual motor and a higher top speed as well. The controller, the end that it's able to discharge, it's also a bit higher on the dual motor to really get that you're looking for a dual motor. The 48 volt, 13.5 Ah for both of them. The IP56, and yeah, I don't know what are the other spec.
Speed and range. If people didn't catch that yesterday.
Yeah, 25 miles. Yeah, the range, something we didn't mention in the keynote. That's my bad. I'm sorry, everyone. It's 25 miles for the single motor, 28 miles for the dual motor. So the obvious question is, well, how is the dual motor having more range if you have the same battery? It's because the consumption is less when you have dual motor going at same speed. Of course, if you go faster with a dual motor, it's going to consume more. But if you got the same speed on both of them, like 25 kilometers per hour, you're gonna it's more optimized on the dual motor. The motors are eating less. The discharge that you are asking from the battery is also less. It's split in two. So if you have the money for the dual motor, go for it. It's so nice, and I think it's if the motor is heating less, if the controller is heating less, if you are asking less of a high discharge to the battery, your component will last longer at the end. That being said, the single is super safe, and with all the thermal protection we talk about, it's going to last 1,000 years. But if you have the money, go for the dual motor. You won't regret it.
Cool. So for I guess our Canadian, I'll jump in with the calculation for our Canadian or maybe European customers. So it's going to be about 40 kilometers and 45 kilometers for the range. Yeah,
quite impressive.
I guess if people are more concerned about the weight, go for the single motor. If you want the range and the performance, go for the dual motor. We mentioned the top speed, right? What was the top speed again? It's probably similar to the range, I'm guessing.
50 on the, I think 27 miles per hour for the single motor. And the dual motor was, just know it in kilometers per hour. I think it's 30 miles per hour, 32 miles per hour, sorry, for the dual motor,
50 miles to kilometers, so
it's like 50,
per hour.
Yeah. Well, on the one I had here, I had 53 kilometers per hour. And as you know, like we always understate the top speed we reach. But like personally, I hit 53, and I'm 190 pounds of pure muscle for people that don't see my shape. But 190, and it was minus 20 degrees. Not sure if that helped or not. I don't think it's optimal for real.
Usually the cold kills the battery more quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think if like you are 175, you are like in a hot day or at least like in positive temperature, you're gonna hit probably 55. But again,
Okay. So yeah, definitely a lot faster than the City and pretty comparable, I think, to the Explorer. And especially for the dual motor City, it's dual 500 watts, and everyone knows the Explorer is a single 1,000-watt motor.
yeah,
So they should have pretty similar specs, we're guessing. So the City could
yeah,
even be maybe an upgrade, I guess, for the Explorer too.
yeah. And the Explorer is 52 volt, right? So the fact that you are
Mhm.
able to achieve pretty much the same top speed with 48 volt, it's pretty great. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, this is all very exciting. I guess the last things we'll mention too is that the City will have the Bluetooth chip, like you mentioned, so it will be compatible with the Apollo app, and there's lots of more cool features coming there. And of course, if you guys have been paying attention to our YouTube channel, we have just opened up our very first official New York repair service location too. So for everyone located in the New York area, and even outside of that, because they will be accepting shipments too, right? It's going to be exciting. So they're not going to have to ship their scooter to us anymore, or if you're in that area or in the United States.
Exactly. And another thing we do with the app right now, we are able now to read all your setting, temperature, and everything in our backend. So the customer service is going to be able to help you way better, instead of asking the back and forth, like do a range test, send me the mileage and voltage at the beginning and then after. Well, now we can see that in the back end, which is quite cool. It's going to be more efficient. You can also book an appointment for the repair center now directly in the app. So if you're in Montreal,
Wow.
you go in the help section, you go in service locator, you're going to see the two service center that we have, one in New York, one in Montreal. You click on it, you can request an appointment. You can rate them like it's quite cool. And also the goal in the long term, it's with, as many of you know, we are launching our tech crew program. So you're going to be able to see all the tech crew there and then talk to them directly. It's going to be way easier. You don't have to pass through CS, wait for an answer. Even if now we have 24 hours, 7 days a week chat, it's always better to just click on your phone, get your appointment, and that's it. It's better for you and for us. So everyone is winning in that. In this, so this version of the app, just so people know, is going to come out probably in a week or two. I'm going to be able to do those actions.
Yeah, this is exciting developments, even just outside of the scooter development itself. It's like having different tiers of repair levels. So obviously we have the content on our YouTube page if you want to try basic repairs yourself. We're gonna have that tech crew basically around the country and around Canada and the US ideally, and then we're gonna have the dedicated big repair centers too, Montreal, New York, and more cities to come soon. So really different levels and tiers to give everyone the best experience. And as you mentioned, it's very important to note that these will not be dropped in location, so they will have to make an appointment still.
Correct.
Yeah, all very exciting stuff. I think, man, we've been talking for almost an hour already. This is all very cool. For anyone who is not aware, join our early access mailing list so that you can get early access to the pre-orders, which will open up on March 23rd. If you want to be one of the first few to purchase the City scooter and get those exciting bonuses that will come with it, you will need to be on that list, and especially if you want to buy the scooter before it sells out, because I think we're expecting it to sell pretty quickly, even just like the Phantom did. Yeah, I think that covers everything. Thank you again for watching, guys. Let us know what you think of the podcast. Let us know what you think of the City scooter. Let us know what you think we should talk about next in our next podcast, and maybe what we should name our next scooter too. No Scooty McScootface, whatever names, please. But yeah, thanks again for watching, guys. As always, ride safe.
Bye.